Everyone, welcome back to Azure DevOps learning series. In the last session, we have learned about the basic of YAML. We talked about the reserved keywords like the trigger, syntax, indentation, pull, and how to write a basic script. In today's session, we will go one level deeper onto creation of the CI/CD pipeline and how to create and make your pipeline dynamic and reusable by using variables and variables groups. So let's get to be understand why the variables matter. In the real world, for any CI/CD pipeline, we never hard code any value in the YAML file. So, in order to make those values as a dynamic and usable, we are using the variables and variables groups. This will helps to avoid any duplications. Means for each and every pipeline, you should not or you are not going to be create the same variable again and again, and it helps to be improve the readability. It helps as soon as there is a change in the value without making any change into your YAML code. Now let's get started onto the how to define the variables and what all different type of variables are in Azure DevOps pipeline. So let's talk about the different type of variables. In the Azure DevOps, the variables has been defined in four different ways. One is inline YAML variables, second is runtime variables, third is secret variables, followed by the variable groups. So let's learn one by one all different type of variables. Okay. I have started it up here. I have used the same pipeline that we created last time. We use the trigger, we have defined all the paths and everything. Now I have added a section with the name as variables. Whenever we have to use a variable onto the Azure DevOps pipeline, we have to use the keyword variables, followed by all the variables that you want to be defined within an pipeline. For now, let's skip this first part. We will first talk it about the inline variables. So the way to define only the inline variables within a pipeline is you can see this key value pair, that you have to give a name to your variable and then the value to a variable. If we are not defining this particular group, there is another way to give a name or define a variable, which is like, let me edit this one. So it has to be given. Again, you have to be follow all the indentation and everything. Let's see the environment colon, then give the environment as a tab. So this is the another way to define a variable as a key value pair. Okay. Now the next is there are multiple runtime variables has also been exist, like our build ID that we can use, like our branch name where this build has been started, and there are few more. We will see how all those variables needs to be used and going to be used within a pipeline. Third one is about our secrets. I have not been used here because as soon as we define the secrets or a password, that is never going to be shown as part of your logs. It's got created because whenever you have a password, whenever you have a secrets, everything will be masked automatically by the Azure DevOps. Correct? The next one is variable group, most important one, where you can define more than one variables as part of your group and then use those keys or the variables name in your pipeline. Okay, so let's start it and let's create one variable group, and then we will see how all those different variables has been used and been referred in our pipeline. So let's create one variable group with the name as common variables. I have been created it. So how that can be done? So you have to be go onto the pipeline. There is an option of library on the left side. You have to go to the library, and there is an option of to create a variable group. So let's click on the variable group and give it a name as ADO variable group. Okay, so this is your group name. However, once the group name has been defined, you have to be define the variables. Suppose I've given it here as a variable as dev. You can define as many variables as you want onto the variable group. Okay, environment, and then the namespace, followed by if you want to be at specifically like uh, Terraform ID, Terraform environment, something like that. Let's give it as a name as default, Terraform environment Azure, and then save it out. So this is the way that within one variable group you can define multiple variables. Now let's go and learn about how these variables is being referred in our pipeline. Let me go back and open the same pipeline code base. Now you can see we have defined a variable group. How to refer a variable, the group there, you have to be defined under the variable with the key as group and then the variable group name. I have chosen here both the things, the group as well as the inline variable. And let's see how all these variables is being called and be used in our pipeline. And you know, when we discussed last time, we have to be define at least one script as part of the steps or a stage so that the pipeline can be started. These are all just a basic configuration that has been done. Now I have choose here as a script where first I am going to be use a variable that has been defined within a YAML, which means the inline variable. So this is the syntax to be use your inline variable within a CI/CD pipeline. Second, we talked about our runtime variables. So if you remembered, I said like we have multiple builds related variables that created over the runtime. That is where I have mentioned it as a build.source branch. And I want to be select the branch here, and it can be used further for some more pipeline that will go a little deeper onto our next sessions. Followed by the build ID again. It's a runtime variable. If you can see here, as soon as you can write the build dot, it will give you what all things that you have to choose. Okay, and then we have been defined here over the last one as the build environment that has been defined as part of our variable group. Let me show you that also here quickly. So on the common variable, there is only one variable that has been defined with the name as build env, and the value of that is dev. Let me change this value to QA and save it out. Now we have been selected over inline variable, runtime variable, and variable groups. So let's commit the change and then see how these all variables will be look and being used in our pipeline. So let's go to the pipeline that we have created last time. Now you can see the pipeline has been completed. It was earlier one. So let's execute the new fresh pipeline. Now you can see there is one stage that has been created, and under that there are going to be all those different scripts coming up with the name that we have defined. So let's see. Initialization has been done, checkout has been done. You can see the first one, app name, where we have chosen the inline variable. So let's see whether the value has been coming up. Yes. So you can see the value, it's given as app name release. So that is how it has been defined in our YAML. Now you can see here app name as a display name followed by inline variable value, which is release. The next one is the source branch. Here our source branch is main. So let's see the logs. Yes, you can see the branch followed by the complete branch path. Got it? The next one is the build ID. You can see this build ID is been 209. Later on the next session, we will see like where these runtime variables can also be in use. The now last one here is our variable group. Now you can see we had created one variable in the variable group with the name as build environment, and we set the value as QA. So the same value has been referred here as a QA. Okay, so that is the way that how the variable group has been defined, and it can be used in our pipeline. That this is how the different things has been done, and this is how you can be defined multiple things in your pipeline, and it can be used. Now the most important part I want to be covered here as a variable precedence. When we are defining the inline variable, when we have defined the variable groups or the YAML variables, what is the precedence? First of all, the Azure DevOps pipeline will give a precedence to our runtime variables that got created, followed by any variable defined as part of the YAML variables, like its inline variables. Third one, it will be give a precedence to our variable group, and then followed by there is a way to define the variable directly in the pipeline. So let me show you here. If you can go ahead and edit your pipeline, there is an option to define the variables right here. This is the last precedence within a different type of variable that has been defined. But this is the way that you can create multiple variables for your pipeline, and that is most importantly that we have never hard coded the values, we are always using the variables, and this helps to make our pipeline better and reusable. Thank you so much. On our next session we will go one level deeper to be understand what is the difference between the jobs and the stages. Thank you so much.